So, IHT, Julie, there's been a bit of a change in the rules, hasn't there, recently?
There's been a lot of nonsense in the media about inheritance tax. Well, not just inheritance tax, about tax avoidance. So there's a misunderstanding about avoidance and evasion.
Yeah.
What is it? Tax evasion. Well, tax evasion is hiding money from the taxman. So it's like not paying what's due. Tax avoidance is organising your affairs so that you pay as little as possible, and that's perfectly acceptable. It's what everybody does.
And everyone should do.
And everybody should do it, yeah, because there's all this fallacy about everybody's, everybody should pay the maximum tax that you should pay, and that's nonsense because, it's been tested in court and proved in court many times that you're allowed to arrange your affairs to pay as little tax as you possibly can get away with. People pay tax unnecessarily, and inheritance tax is a big one because it's pretty much a voluntary tax. There's no need to pay it because there's many things you can do about it.
Can you get away with paying none? I don't mean get away. I don't mean in a criminal way, but legally you can get away with paying.
Yeah, the problem is that you can shield most of your assets from inheritance tax, but there's you have to keep enough of it accessible for you to be able to use it in your lifetime.
So ignorant assets. What counts as an asset?
Your assets, when you let's just go back to what happens when you die. Everything that you own is taken into account by the Inland Revenue.
My kettle.
Everything. So chattels they're called. Things like.
I thought they were slaves.
No, chattels.
Oh, bloody slaves.
It's an old-fashioned word, but chattels is that your things like your sofa and your furnishings and your paintings and your crockery and your silver and your stuff like that. That's all of it's taken into account, sir. And a lot of people have asked me, but how do they know what you've got? Well, guess what? Nobody can get your hands on your stuff until they've done what's called probate. And probate is the process of the Inland Revenue finding out what you owe.
That's what they use.
That's what they use. That's the mechanism. And actually, it's not necessary because there's many things you can do, as my book says.
Your book?
37 legal ways.
Look at this book.
To avoid paying inheritance tax. So that.
In all seriousness, it's bloody good. This.
Well,
my mum read it.
It tells you
something
of all the different ways you can avoid inheritance tax. That it's not necessary to pay it. So it's not necessary to hide Great Auntie Enid's.
Yeah.
Or Ethel, or whatever I called her just then, her ring, because you could gift it, genuinely in your own lifetime to the next generation, survive 7 years.
If you suddenly start giving if you say you're going to die, I mean we don't know when we're going to die, do we? But say you've got an illness and you're pretty sure you're going to die in the next year, and suddenly you start giving everything away.
Doesn't work. It doesn't work because you've got to survive 7 years from giving those things away anyway for it to work. Some of the investment solutions we use, for inheritance tax, you've got to have them in place for 2 years. Inheritance tax planning is really difficult to do towards the end of a lifetime, which is why so many people pay it, because I think it raised £3.5 billion last year. And that is because people think they're immortal. They think that they're not going to die, and by the time they know that they're going to die, it's too late to do anything about it.
Yeah.
So we advocate. There's a debate goes on with most advisors about when you need to start inheritance tax planning, bearing in mind that
I was going to ask you that.
It's payable on anything you own over $325,000, so you don't have to be extremely wealthy for it to apply to you. So I think you can't do it early enough, whereas some people think you ought to enjoy the fruits of your own labour during your lifetime and start inheritance tax planning towards the end of your life, but the problem is you don't know when that is.
No. And because I think with inheritance tax it's really people sort of middle age that should be doing it, and because also we've all got parents, we're fortunate enough to still have our parents who are coming to where they are going to die within the next 10 years.
Yeah,
but they're so resistant.
Well, that's it, and you can
advise about it.
Well, and here's why they are, and you can understand it. Is let's just say you suddenly get £1 million tomorrow, so you've now got an inheritance tax problem. Are you going to give it away? Are you going to do anything with it that means that you can't access it? Because you'll want... No, the beauty of it is there are things you can do where you can access it and it still be tax efficient. So you can't leave it too late because you don't know when too late is. I had a client who I'd been talking to for many years about trying to do something. He had a very significant inheritance tax problem. He finally decided to do something about it. Within 3 months of deciding to do something about it, he died. So that ended up with a £4 million tax liability, which we all knew about, his family knew about, he knew about, I knew about, but
it's all like if only.
it was, you know, and he finally at 82 accepted that probably he wasn't going to live forever, but unfortunately he only lived until he was 82.
Oh, crap.
Because he died before we had a chance to do anything, and that's quite common. And you know, even if you start inheritance tax planning, say in your late 70s, and you're doing something that takes 7 years to work.
Yeah.
You
No,
do,
it's a bit like Russian
clients,
roulette, isn't
it is a bit like Russian roulette, and I've had clients. So, I mean, some of the solutions we use, you do have an immediate saving from inheritance tax. So they're not always, you know, it doesn't always not work if you haven't survived the 7 years. But a lot of them take a full 7 years to survive, and if you don't survive it, then
you're buggered.
So you might as well, and there are other things you can do where you can totally keep access to it. There are, believe it or not, inheritance tax-free ISAs available now, and there never was. ISAs are free from income tax and capital gains tax, but they always used to be subject to inheritance tax when you die. So it was great for the government because the more you had in your ISA pot, the more they got when you died. Well, now you can move them into inheritance tax-free ISAs, which is relatively new. That's only been available for a year.
So what would you say to somebody who's not sure if they or their parents or loved ones who are going to be the ones who are going to die and leave the inheritance?
Well, here's what I'd say to anybody is get the book. Give the book to your parents.
Which book is that, Julie?
This is the 37 legal ways to slash many thousands of pounds off your inheritance tax bill. Just send it to whoever it is that's got the problem.
Yeah.
It will at least get them thinking about it. There are some real there's some real problems with people actually doing things about it and we've already covered some, which is, well, actually I need all this money. Well, clearly you don't, because you don't need it when you're dead.
No.
But of course there are other things where you maybe need the income from your assets during your lifetime. Well, that's great, we can do that as well. So you can have access to income and or capital and inheritance tax-free investment because you're doing everything and solving the problem at the same time. But what you can't do is leave it too late.